Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Lisa Retamoso coming to you from the Sorters Education Center. It's our weekly lunch and learn where we talk about everything and anything regarding talent search and EOC grant competition because this is a time where we could speak freely. We're on taking a break from our government hourly position, so to speak, taking a lunch or a break so that we can talk about things that typically are unallowable because you can't work on federal grants while you're getting paid out of one. Okay. So I'm going to open it up to see if there's any questions. I started before the recording letting folks know that as of today, March 9th, 2026, I have no idea when the talent search or the EOC, I'm sorry, yeah, the talent search or EOC RFP or program application will come out. Um, it should have come out already. I am just speculating that it can be any day now with a 3 week, if we're lucky, 4 weeks turnaround. So that means everybody listening to me right now should already have their drafts done for all the sections updated and just waiting for the final program application to confirm that the objectives have not changed. Because although the header or the basic overview or label of, for example, post-secondary enrollment, that can't change, but the wording, even the years that we have to track students could change. I don't think they are, but I always double check that. What I'm curious about, and I'm kind of gone as far as I can with the majority of my proposals that we're working on, is that I'm waiting for the competitive preference priorities. I need to know what they are so I can develop them separately if that's what they want, or they're going to make it combined. It's always been separate, but I'm kind of have my waiting on that information as well. But there has been no news. Typically, historically, talent search has been first, then EOC. Who's to say they won't put them out together? Yikes, that would be scary, right? So with me is also Donna and Leah. So if you have any questions, you can't hear me or you're wanting to access a recording or any information, please put that in the chat. We do have a Q&A. Where can we find FAFSA completion and college admission information? I'm assuming EOC. You're with EOC, correct? Yeah, that's probably it. So you're looking for the baseline. The baseline for the EOC objectives, you've got 4 objectives in EOC. They need to be, by the time the reader gets to the end of the need section, they need to have the baseline. They need to be able to find the baseline there. And this is the hardest thing, y'all. I don't know how they've been doing it for all these years. It's impossible, next to impossible to go to any website and pull up a report that says, here's the national FAFSA completion rate for adults. Here's the national college admissions information or application baseline. Here's the national rate for adults that go back to college. So you're kind of stuck using or comparing yourself to the high school senior FAFSA completion rate. And I believe we can find that, or we have that national rate. We do have a document in the EOC and Talent Search. I know there's one in the EOC folder with some national benchmarks. National benchmarks, we can, even the national benchmarks say, well, we can assume that if this is the rate for high school students that complete the FAFSA, would they go ahead and say, well, we estimate that this is somewhat different for the adult population, but that's the only thing you can compare yourself to is that the senior FAFSA completion rate. If anybody out there has a national completion rate for the for the nation for adults, please let us know because we haven't been able to find it. I will tell you this. I have been, you can go and ask your GED professionals, your partners in the GED centers, those instructors, those directors to give you their professional assessment on what percentage of adults apply for college on their own in the target area, apply for FAFSA on their own in the target area, and go to college on their own in the target area. Or here's something, if you're an existing EOC, perhaps, just perhaps, this is the one time where I break my rule of never using my own baseline data to show the need is where I might look at my EOC APR that I just turned in and use the performance of my clients or participants on the 24-25 APR, because you have percentages for each objective, and using that as the baseline. They're within the target area. Now, they've been served and someone has actually helped them. So it's an inflated rate. It's apples to oranges, but at least it's something that you can say a sample of the participants or the sample of residents and adults in the target area that did this, this, and this. It could be the baseline or the performance on your objective. It's just that you better hope that your program in meeting their objectives was still doing not as great as the national rate, even if it's for the high school students. So you see, if your program is above that rate, then it's not going to show need. But if your program, although maybe it met its objectives, is still struggling behind the state or national rate, then that's something you may consider is using your own APR data on students that were served as the baseline for the needs section objectives. And in a way, you'll be trying to perform better and base your new objectives off of performance. So that's just an idea because it's super, super hard to find. Again, in the EOC folder, there is something called data resources, and there's where we have some of the national data. It's not perfect, but it's something, and it's always been a challenge. In Talent Search, what is the typical criteria used to distinguish rigorous curriculum? Great question. In the Google Drive for Talent Search, there is a document called RSSPS definition. It's not typical criteria. It must be one of those 6 definitions. Okay. And I don't know if Leah or Donna, if you guys have a chance to put a link to that specific document in the Google Drive. It's in the Talent Search folder. It's in the resources folder, I believe, or it could be out there by itself, but it's called RSSPS definition. You have 6 choices. You can't make it up. You can't come up with your own choice. Here in Texas, because the state says that regular equals rigorous, we can't use the first definition, which I'm paraphrasing here in the regulations, basically states whatever the state says is rigorous goes. Well, that doesn't work. I mean, I love it for when we're working on our APR because we always meet our, because everyone who gets regular gets rigorous. So we're at 100%. Yay. But then when we come to write to show a need for that objective, we struggle unless you have to pick a more rigorous definition, which could be definition number 2 per the regulations. Definition number 2, paraphrasing again, it says whatever the state says is an advanced or honors program. So you need to find out what your state's advanced or honors program definition is by the state. Again, you can't make it up or you can't come up with it. You have to go with their definition. And sometimes their definition sometimes includes the mention of dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment in college sometimes. But concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment, whatever you want to call it, on its own is not one of the 6 definitions. So unless it is listed under the definition for your state as an advanced or honors program, you can't just say, well, our definition is dual enrollment. It has to be part of that. It's out of our control, basically. So look at those definitions. There's another 2 definitions that are specific to a particular region of the country, the Colorado region, I think, or the Western region. I can't remember off the top of my head. Then there's one about IB courses. And then the last one is about advanced placement. And that's a tough one too, because it's super hard to track how many students have taken 2 AP courses and scored, or at least 2 and scored a 3 or higher on 2 of them. Now that you can always show need. I mean, so if you're not able to show need in any of the other categories, then usually people go with, I just had a discussion with a client this morning and he goes, yeah, we're going to go with that definition. I know I'm never going to meet it once we get refunded. We never meet it. We try, but we never meet it because it's so hard. But that's okay because I needed to show need. So sometimes you purposely pick the hardest thing so you can show there's a need, so you can get points and get funded. So then you can try your best to meet that objective. Or you could be like, you know what? No matter what, we don't have money to make that happen, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with not getting full 15 points. I'm okay with 13.5 because it's only worth 1.5. Okay. So you have to be okay with thinking, well, wow, that, some people are saying, well, that's too hard. It's too hard. Let me pick something that's easier. You pick a definition that's easier, you're not going to be able to show the need. So you're going to lose, what, 6 points in the need section for not showing need, or go ahead and pick one that shows a need, knowing you're going to have to struggle later on. But then you only lose 1.5 points in the second, third, and fourth year. We're wondering how we could capture post-secondary credentials earned, such as certificates, licensures not okay reporting. Uh, again, the only time where you can get that specific and use something that's not outright listed in the regulations, the six definitions, is if in the definition for your advanced honors program definition number two, if when you look in the definition for what the state says, maybe they incorporate what you're listing here. If they say that's part of their definition for an advanced or honors program, then you're good. But you can't develop your own definition. Okay. That's the hard part. And that's why I hate that. I hate it. I get it. I get it for Upward Bound. I'm all for it for Upward Bound. I get it for Upward Bound. But Upward Bound gets a ton more money per student to make sure instruction happens in the summer so that we can work on advanced placement or we can work on those things. I think, life's not fair, right? Someone once told me, right? I think it's totally inappropriate to have Talent Search have the same objective that Upward Bound has and none of the money. But hey, I'm not there to fix the regs. That's the first thing I would do if I could, is say to get rid of that for Talent Search. It's not fair because we don't have money to earn it. So it's almost like you have to go ahead and sacrifice it, and say, look, sacrificial lamb, look, we're going to pick a definition. Let's go with number six. Yeah, I know we can show need. Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to meet it. Let's not even bother to try to meet that one because we don't have the money and resources. Let's make sure our time and effort goes toward meeting all the other objectives. But at least I was able to show a need and be in business for another funding cycle. Even if it's not to ever earn any points on that objective, I'll just put more emphasis on making sure I meet all the other objectives. Okay. Look for that document there. Um, yes, I think that's the one. All right. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? Great questions about EOC and about talent search needs section. And that's what we're deep into. You could crank out the other sections if you had to in a couple of days. I don't want you to. Hopefully you've been doing that already, taking each section and going through it line by line, looking for any trigger words, using talent search eligible whenever you can in place of low income and first generation college. And if you're going to use low income and first generation college, make sure it says first generation. I can't tell you how many times I see folks going low income and first generation. And they forget the college word. That's the official title, first or potential first generation college student, which is a lot. So why not just replace it with talent search eligible? The same thing with EOC eligible. Um, you should have all those drafts ready to go. So whenever you hear or find out what the CPPs are for each one, then you can tweak the plan of operation to make small mention of it and spend the rest of your time developing the separate CPPs if they are going to be separate. We do have some examples of Gear Up CPP, which again, just for formatting's sake, because I know they're going to be slightly different. They are going to be different. We also did a blog post I think a couple of weeks ago, Donna. I don't know if you can have a chance to go ahead and put that in the link as well in the chat about what the final priorities are out. They're out, so we know what the final ones are, but we don't know which ones are supposed to be for talent search and which ones would be for EOC. And then even then, all the priorities are pretty broad and they each have like chapters within the one priority. So at this point, although I know what the priorities, the final priorities, the broad category are supposed to be, um, what I don't know is which of the chapters under each priority they will decide we have to address in talent search and EOC. Okay. So if you want to check that out, and I don't know if one of y'all, even if Leah or Donna, if one of y'all can get to the website or bring it up and I can do a brief overview of what the final priorities are. I'm afraid to move my mouse because I think I'll get, or navigate because kind of crazy morning already. I'm afraid I might lose you all. So whenever y'all get a chance to go ahead and let me know, you can share that blog post and I can briefly go over it with folks to let them know what the final priorities are. But again, that doesn't mean I don't know which ones will go for talent search, which ones for EOC, and which focus it will be on. Okay. Let me see if we have any questions. Just let me know when you're comfortable sharing that. We can wait till later. Come on, Q&As. I know people have questions. Here, thank you, Donna, so much.
Is this the
So
correct one?
exactly, that's the correct
Okay.
one. Thank you so much. If you could make it a little bigger on your end, because and I'll put my glasses on too, that might help. So this was posted back on what day? February 28th, I believe. Yeah. So, let's see. Could you go to upper right-hand corner where it says, yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for my old eyes. And sometimes these don't work. I believe it was February 20th. All right. So, the priorities can mean the major focus is, and of course, there's absolute, competitive, and invitational. We've been getting points off of competitive. Competitive priorities are optional. You don't have to answer them officially, but you would be crazy not to. You're leaving points on the table. So although they say they're optional, they're really not because you got to go for them because the cutoffs are so high. Absolutely need to go for them. In the past, you could have survived without doing them and getting funded just on the basis of the rest of the narrative. Now you can't. So let's look at the final priorities and possibly how they can impact the competition. So the first one, there's five of them, and here's strengthening core instruction. So when you get a chance to check this out, you know, I hope this to me sounds like it's more for Upward Bound, but you never know. They always put, they give us some talent search stuff as well. They throw stuff at talent search that I think should be just for Upward Bound. But these are some examples on the heavy emphasis in math, high quality instructional materials, professional development. I mean, it could be that it doesn't even go to Upward Bound, but maybe more for McNair. And here it's talking about academic support must be evidence-based, tutoring models must align to grade level content, partnerships with institutions, and data must show impact. So it's really focusing on improving the academic instruction. So we're not about that, right? But sometimes the department forgets we're not about that. The next one is high quality intervention and acceleration. And so here's about remedial and accelerated learning. Again, something that maybe is not so appropriate to Talent Search or EOC, I would think, but then again, I'm not the one who selects what priorities or what parts of the priority go to which competition, right? I can see that career connected learning, which is the next one, see how it even mentions this section aligns naturally with UB and UBMS career exploration or talent search post-secondary planning, and for EOC workforce transition support. So I'm hoping that the CPP that we get falls under one component of the career connected learning, which is something we could easily or more appropriately make a connection between our plan of operations services provided, because one of the things that we do is career exploration. So I can see for both Talent Search and EOC that could happen. All right. And then we have innovative assessment models. This could possibly be one of the things that typically they say, oh, you need to have a logic model that shows a rationale, demonstrates a rationale. So perhaps now the innovative assessment model, they'll want us to include it, mention of it in our evaluation plan, or once again, ask that the logic model include a component that has gone through some innovative assessment models, possibly. Then we have family support and at-home learning. Okay. So for for specifically for talent search and EOC, this could be more structured parental engagement. So mention of that, academic literacy tools for families, and virtual access. Perhaps. It's pure speculation, okay? What I do know is that we have those five final priorities. The CPPs are going to come from one or more of these. You can go to the details to see how they describe each one in detail. I didn't want to invest too much time and effort in it because I didn't. Number one, I can't hold too much in there. Number two, I wanted to find out, okay, tell me which one specifically and what sub part of it, and then I'll learn the heck out of it. But right now, I don't have the capacity or bandwidth to learn all of it all at once if it's not going to pertain to me right now, right? So I have to pick things that I need to be aware of. So what's not changing? Some things, civil rights laws still apply. IDEA and Section 404 still apply. This priority does not override authorizing legislation. And so it lets you, there's also tells you what you should do right now and then how you should, this priority becomes competitive preference. If this priority becomes a competitive preference in upcoming trio competition, reviewers will be trained to look for the alignment, the connection. And I think that's going to be a big focus. I think it's going to be a bigger deal, these CPPs under a new administration. These are new final priorities. This is the first time talent search will be the first ones pretty much going under a new administration's uh, priority, um, final priorities. So, although everything else hasn't changed, our questions in the narrative, and although I keep telling folks that the answers you should update. So, although the questions aren't changing, you should definitely update how you answer the questions. This is going to be, when we find out we're going to spend the majority of our time working on the competitive preference priorities, finding out what they are, how to address them. We're probably going to have, I know we're going to have a webinar on that we slap together as we go through and try to assess, how to utilize and implement or what components to stress in our plan of operations and where to bring it up. We'll let you know about that as well, but it'll be in real time. Usually you have time to know about them. Hey, I remember back in the day where they used to tell us, they used to give us a draft of the RFP. This is what we think will be in there. And you're like, got this time to look at it. Then they say, okay, here's the real one. Those days are gone. They also used to, back in the day when CPPs first came out, oh, here's pretty much what we think will be the subcomponent of the final priorities that we're thinking about EOC and talent search covering. So we had time to develop workshops about it. People, oh gosh, we just had, it's like we had so much information and time, and now they just come out. So we will slap together something in real time pretty much trying to address that. Thank you, Donna. Again, thank you for putting that blog link, the link to the blog post in the chat and also showing that. Thanks. When should we start getting worried about not having an RFP? You should be worried already. I don't want to freak you out on a Monday, but I got to be for real. You don't want to come back and say, Lisa, why didn't you tell me to be prepared? Typically, in this year, you got to look at your budget right now. Look at your budget and see how much carryover you have. Right now, you should be planning. If it were me, I wouldn't be spending like crazy, okay? I want to keep at least 2 months of salary saved in case this doesn't. Yeah, well, if you got zero carryover, then you're going to have to start talking to people on campus and let them know, look, I don't think we're going to get our GANs. And I could be wrong, but you got to prepare them. I don't think we're going to get our GANs in time. So what's the plan? You have to have this type of discussion. It was, when it was due in mid-February, it was a struggle to get our GANs by the second week of July. Look where we're at right now. And maybe that's why I'm like, if this is going to work, then that means we don't have 6 weeks to work on the proposal once the RFP drops. it means we could have 3 weeks. And you have to be okay with that because the quicker they get in, hopefully the quicker they have them read. This is the first time a trio competition is going to be read under this new format with the department not really being there and the transition. So I'm not even sure who is going to be reading. It should be peer reviewers per the regulations, but you never know. So they could crank it out and get it back. But I'm not used to it, right? It's unusual for me to think that this late in the game that we'll have our GANs before our budget runs out. So already you should be worried. Not when should I start getting worried? You should be worried now. You should plan. What do they always say? You know what? You want to plan for the worst case scenario and hoping for the best. If you will not have carryover, then you probably need to, I don't know if there's any activities you could curtail or if you could start saving. I'd rather end up with a pile of money that I have to give back and not really give back because you don't get it until you download it. But I'd rather plan and end up with, oh gosh, silly me. I saved that stuff, or I canceled this one trip, or I didn't hire that tutor, or I cut down, on some supplies and stuff. And here I am. I should have used it, Well, no, I mean, I would rather not eat up all that money and end up with some money than to go ahead and use it all. Okay. But we can't have any care. We have to give it. You're not giving anything back. You didn't use it. You don't, what I'm saying is, um, yes, if you're an EOC or even a talent search, probably 90% of your budget goes to staff. So you have to think that critical staff, and you just have to think, just like with a company. If you're not going to get, your investors are not going to be able to give you money until the end of September. And EOC, you've already gone through this. This happened to EOC last time. If they were brand new EOC, it wasn't a problem. But if you're an existing EOC, so yes, I would. If what I'm saying is, do whatever you can to see if you could save and end up with at least a month of salary somehow. Start saving, planning for that, not put it aside. And yes, what I'm saying is you're supposed to eat up your carryover this year, right? You're supposed to not have, you're not going to have any carryover after this year, but I meant carryover from the previous year. Some of y'all rolled some money over. So it was your base plus carryover, right? Some of y'all did. Some of y'all did. Um, we typically at the end of 5 years try to end up with $1, right? But it doesn't happen that way. I'd rather you make sure you have enough money for another to use that. Well, you can get a one, I'm sorry, let me start over. In this type of situation, what happened with other grants last time around, like with SSS, um, uh, which they didn't have to use, but for other programs, you can get a one-time cost extension, no cost extension, sorry, one-time no cost extension, where they will allow you to use that into the next period. Okay. All right. Um, but when you say giving the money back, it's money you never downloaded. So my thing is, well, I never used it. So it's still there in the account. We never download, hold on to money, and then have to give it back. Okay. But some of y'all may have some carryover. Some of y'all have some carryover out there, and I would not be spending it like crazy. If you're in a situation where you have any type of carryover that came in from 24, 25 into 25, 26, I would try to keep at least a month separate. And if you don't use it and have to give it back, so to speak, so be it. There's nothing wrong with giving money back if it's reasonable that for 1 month's salary, but you don't want to have a ton of carryover. But I don't think anybody's going to be in that situation. But yeah, I mean, you don't get to, but there are circumstances when, and I think this will be one of them, when you'll be allowed to request before 2 weeks before your grant ends, typically you're allowed to request, can I use some of this carryover to extend until we get our grant, our GAN? And for EOC, they did that. But what the problem was, they said they actually issued a blanket extension. Oh, by the way, EOCs, I know you haven't heard about you getting refunded yet. Not a problem. We're granting a one-time no-cost extension. So just go ahead and use whatever funds you have left. Go ahead and use it until you're told that you're awarded again. The problem was EOCs didn't have any carryover. They're like, gee, thanks, but I don't have any money to carry us into the next year. Someone says, I'm thinking that about 2008, we were awarded a grant extension or extra year on the grant. Do you remember anything like that? You don't get an extra year now. Some of y'all may be on a 5 year, a banked year. Find out that's back in the day where grants, if they scored in the top 10%, they would give them a free additional year because it used to be 4 years. Then they would give them an extra year. So some people are banks, so they may have that money to go off of, okay, because their budget does not end like everyone else has done. They have an extra year. But yes, in 2008, or actually in the last fund competition for EOC, they were granted a one-time no-cost extension. But it wasn't a whole year. It was just letting you know what, you can go ahead and use that carryover into the next funding cycle, which typically you cannot, right? You're absolutely right. Usually when the grant ends, whatever money's not spent, it has to go back unless it's a situation where they haven't gotten the GANs out. Okay. And yes, most of your salary goes to, that's why this is why I actually had someone ask me last week. Now, I don't think they attended our lunch and learn, but they said, I'm thinking about doing a new EOC. What do you think? And I said, hey, first of all, here's a template for the budget. This is how much you can ask for. Now show me how y'all can afford at least three full-time people because you need a full-time director to get funded. You cannot get funded without a full-time director. I mean, you can try to ask after you get funded to make it 50%, but you've got to have a full-time counsel for ESU and at least two full-time people to serve at 850 people a year. So that's three full-time staff. So plug in what salaries you have to pay them, plug in your fringe, and look at everything else you have to pay for. Contact me back if you can make it work. And remember, your salaries are going to go up, but the money you get from the department's not going to go up. So who's going to pay the difference? All right. So, this is why a lot of people new to the game are like, oh, I want to do it. Then they do the budget. And then they realize, I can't afford this unless my agency or my college gives us money from the get-go. I don't think they ever gave an extra year, though, if that's what you were saying, Catherine. I know they give a one-time no cost extension, but I don't believe they ever gave just an extra flat out year. I could be wrong. I know there was an issue with Upward Bound that year, but I can't remember with Talent Search and EOC if there was ever an additional year. Okay, right? Long time ago. That would have been a long, but I would hope I would remember something like it in a whole year, you know. I'm happy at this point to get a no cost extension so I can use the funds into, the next couple of months, you know. There was an additional year listed in the Town Search grant that I just started working for. What does this mean? So it depends. If you want, you can send that to me and that we can have an off camera or offline conversation about it. Some programs are banked. They have an additional year of funding because they scored back in the day, once upon a time. They scored in the top 10%, and that's where they were giving out extra years. So the whole thing is that you hope that you never have to use that because that means that you didn't get funded again. So that could have been from 20, 30 years ago, that extra year. So it's very rare. I don't know if you're a new grant, meaning it was just funded this cycle or existing, but we can talk about that separately and we can find out what that means. Okay. Anyone else have any issues, questions? I'm just being for real. That's what worries me. Every day I'm like, okay, I've got another day to make this better. But at the same time, I'm like, yikes, that means it's pushing when we can get the news. I mean, you think this is crazy waiting for when do we find out when we can turn this in? The next thing will be, when are they going to let us know? When are they going to let us know? My college or agency starts bugging me, middle of the summer. Definitely by the end of July, the first week of August, where's your money? Where's the GAN? Where's the GAN? That kind of thing. And maybe I'm just making it sound worse than it's going to be, where they can go ahead and get this done quickly. I have seen that they've done with the last competition that Teresa worked on. They did get it out super fast. And people are already working and they got the money. So maybe the new way is to get these things out, do a quick turnaround, and quickly put out the awards. But that means the competition is fierce. Just got to, you can't have a nice, uh, friendly, not friendly, but you know what I mean, regular competition. If it's going to be fast like that, it's going to be, no back and forth. That's why we have to be very clear. We have to make sure that we answer the questions as fast as possible and have it do a quick read. Have they requested or selected readers that, not that I know of, I have not seen any documentation, which is unusual. But it's makes sense now that we're making that transition over to the Department of Labor. Everything's up in the air where I don't know this process. This is my first trio competition going through something like this where the department is moving over or transitioning over to another department, and I don't have the information for that. I don't have the information. And there's I believe we also posted, or I've got to look for it, Donna, about how one of the things through the new administration is on how they're training or selecting the readers. And my thing was I didn't think they could completely change it because of the regulation about peer reviewers is in the Higher Education Act, and they haven't done the reauthorization yet. But a lot of things are going on. They may say, well, they can override it and make go ahead and make an executive decision to use a company to read, the proposals. So I don't know. New times. One thing at a time, though, get that grant written. Make sure you answer your questions right away. Don't give me a long introduction, no more than a half page target area description, and get to the first question and answer. Here's the question. Here's the answer. You can answer in one sentence and then lead the reader to, as demonstrated in table one, yada, 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 and then give them the table, and underneath the table, give them reasons why the rate is so high or so low. Who says in the target area, according to the GED instructors, according to target school officials, the reason why the college enrollment rate is so low for the target schools is this, this, and this. In the needs section, there's no room or time to talk about, well, this is why you need a program like ours to do this, this, and this. No, you've got the plan of operation and the rest of the proposal, and even starting in the objective section to talk about how great your program is and everything that it does. In the needs section, there can be no sign of hope whatsoever. Okay, you want to answer as quickly as possible the question and then provide a table or listing or bullets of supporting documentation to kind of give the quantitative, backbone to your one sentence answer. And then end each question before you go on to the next one with a quote from somebody there with their professional opinion as to why this is the case, but not this is why you need us because of this, this, and this, and we'll do this to fix it. No, you want to throw out all the issues that your target area has. Get people to support. Yes, that's true because of this, this, and this. Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think there's so many low-income students at this height at these target schools? Why? You may know why, and you may, nudge or encourage the answer, but you have to get these folks to give you quotes, or it can't be according to you as the writer. It could be according to you as a talent search director or the EOC director or to your boss, the VP who oversees the programs. It just can't be just said there without saying, well, who says? That's the issue. And I think the readers will be, it's a nice break for them to see the numbers. And this is what it is. If you give them a little bit of somebody's professional opinion as to why it is before you go on to the next one. Do you see a change in the format requested, for instance, maximum page limit decrease? The maximum page limit and the font thing, those are things that are not in the regulations. The only thing I can, you know, I'm pretty sure I have to say that the questions will not change. The questions cannot change because they're part of the regulations. But what they could do is they certainly could change the maximum page. They could lower it. They could, I've written Gear Up grants where they were down to 30 pages, or some other folks have written for millions of dollars for 25 pages. Um, so Trio is like a dinosaur, though. We've got our sections where it says what the secretary, how the secretary determines a grant or funding is in regulations, but they could definitely in the RFP or the program application increase or decrease the page size. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Um, and I hate to say that, but I hope it stays at the 65, but it could go down to 60 or 50, you know? I see that if they were to, I see there's a standard now, like Gear Up and Title 3 and Title 5. They all seem to use the same format and ask the same questions, even though they're totally different programs. So they're like generic questions, right? Across the board. And then the answer has to be customized for each program. Trio hasn't gotten there yet, not to say that it won't, but I don't think it can because of the regulations regarding that. But once they do that, I can totally see how in the future they should probably revamp the format. So it's probably everybody, whether you're McNair, Upward Bound, or Talent Search, you might get the same generic questions and have the same, well, we have the same sections across the board, but I can see totally because I see it all the time in Title 3, Title 5 in Europe and the other programs where they all seem to have the same question. But of course, per the program, we have to give a different response. But for right now, I don't know. I hope it stays the same. They could bring it down to 50 pages, but that's just me speculating, and I am that would be, I tell you what, my biggest headache is to edit down to make it fit. That's my biggest headache. But right now I can't worry about that right now. If anything, I want too much, even though I hate it, right? I love it and hate it, but I'd rather to have too much information than not enough. And when I find out what the page, so that's where you have your narrative, and then when you get the RFP and it tells you what your rates are, what your page limitations are, then you start cutting, whatever it may be. Okay. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions? I know. I wish they would tell us, right? Is there additional? Okay, so someone the same question as before. So let me know. I can try to help you with that. And yes, you can also text me questions. If you don't hear from me, I'm super, super busy. I mean, just like everybody else is, but I'll try to get to you all as soon as I can. Please check out our the Google Drive with resources there. I'm constantly updating. I'm going to update something that I found on how to. One of our clients actually found a better way. Let's put a better way to get census tract information. So I'm going to check that out and upload it later today into the Google Drive for both EOC and Talent Search. A lot of us are having to work with census tracts because the counties are not showing need. It's too big, and we're actually serving areas within each county. So you may want to check that out and see that document. Again, we have our grant writing workshops available too in the shop. If you need that information, you can get just a link to the recording, or you can go ahead and actually take the course. And we'll be updating that. And like I said, in real time, be offering CPP and updates. We're going to have another webinar about any updates to the RFP. Once it comes out in real time, probably I'll set it up the minute it comes out, and then I'll go through it with y'all as a group. No prep time. It's not going to be pretty. It's just going to be thrown out there to have a discussion about that. All right. When you're looking at your objectives, you can't really set them until you have your data for your needs section. And make sure when you're writing your needs section, again, get someone else to read it for you, someone that's completely out of trio. Give them the questions and see if they can find the answer to the question. How long it takes them? Is it clear? Is there a reason why? The reason why for it, is it provided? I know that I have to, Raquel and I work on these a lot, but we have to get folks on the outside of Trio to look at this, and they come up with great things that we missed because you could get so close to it. You need someone to look at that. Okay. And hey, thank you. You know, I'm talking about you. You were the one that's helping me with that census track. And it takes a village, right? So y'all ever download something and see that something, well, you know what, I tried to do it that way and it didn't quite work out, then let me know by all means. I could have uploaded the wrong document, or we're not perfect. I'm telling people I don't know any better. I don't know a lot more than y'all know. It's just I've been around a lot longer and made a lot of mistakes that I try to learn from and continue to make mistakes every day, try to catch them. And I've got a great team that if I didn't have them, to try to keep me in line, I would be lost. So make sure you have some folks supporting you too, like someone to read for you, someone to collect or help you collect the data, because you may be an awesome director, but maybe not the best to pull the census data. Um, so find that person, find that student, find somebody, make sure their compensation is kept separate from the grant because they are working on this grant and can't be working on grant time. So any other questions? We have about 10 more minutes left. I didn't have anything in general to look at and focus on. Trying to think of what I discovered this week. One of the things, again, I told you about EOC, how people are struggling to find the baseline for their need section. And if they're existing, I said, well, what about using your APR data? How do you feel about that? If it's still showing need when compared to state and national rates, I say go for it. Um, how else can you find that data? Let's see. With talent search, we're struggling, right, with to show persistence that there's a need because the schools are promoting everybody. So a couple of things. Why not? If you have to, this is my Hail Mary, for the persistence table. Um, what about students that persist to the next grade level with a certain GPA, like a 3.0? Or what about just the low income students compared to the other students? What's their persistence rate? Again, in a perfect world, I would just do overall persistence rate for the target schools. But if it's not showing a need or it's like 99%, 100%, you've got to do something. Otherwise, you're going to lose points on that. Okay. The rigorous secondary school program of study, um, not only finding the definition, but then the other part of it is a lot of us are in states where the states require that every high school offers the rigorous access to it. So then the emphasis becomes on the second part of that question that says, or the target schools, there's a lack of academic support at the target schools for students to complete that program. So then you have to shift all your attention to getting a list of terribles for that target school, basically, you know, showing that the target schools are either because of a lack of budget or personnel, that in the following 3 or 4 areas, this is where they're not able to provide students with the academic support to complete the RSSPS that is offered. So I can't say, well, they have a need because they don't have access to it. No, they have access to it, but there's still a problem. So you need at least 3 or 4 of those bullets of why the schools are not able to provide that academic support. And that needs to come from a conversation with the target schools. It could be from your observation, but it's better if it comes from them as well. And I think we have, I don't know, I'll double check to see if I have that uploaded, a document that we have developed with just like a template of generic, 3 or 4 possible issues as to how the target school is not providing that academic support. So I'll upload it in the EOC folder, I mean, Talent Search folder if it's not already there, to see if maybe some of that matches with what you're seeing at your target schools, and you just need to get someone to confirm it. to confirm and say, yes, that's the case here as well. Sometimes it just takes looking at an example to go ahead and run with it in a good way and say, okay, I know exactly who I need to talk to confirm that these are the issues, in fact, that we are facing here, and how the target schools here, as great as they are, due to other reasons, this is where there's a lack of support. Otherwise, you won't be able to show the need if you say, well, yeah, here in Texas, rigorous equals even advanced placement. If I pick the hardest thing, well, they offer it at every school. So now I have to go ahead and um, show how the target school is not able to provide that support. Would comparing standardized scores, benchmark scores, aid in showing need regarding persistence? Well, um, okay, so maybe you're saying persistence based on students that passed or proficient on a certain test to show that they could go on to the next grade level. You know, I possibly, yes, if you can show a need. I'm not saying that you're going to get full points, but it is a good option. Like it's a good Hail Mary pass. Like again, one of my Hail Marys to see if that works is running it by students that have a 3.0 or higher that went on to the next grade level. By the way, I also use that for the 12th grade graduation. Please talent search my talent search people in the needs section. You can tell the readers how the dropout rate or the high school graduation rate is based on ninth through 12th grade. That's fine. But you cannot base your objective on 12th grade graduation. You know which one I'm talking about on your APR, the objective about how many 12th graders graduate with a regular diploma. That has to be about your 12th graders at the target schools too. So when you go 12th grade from fall to 12th grade graduation, a lot of us are not showing a need. Well, if you add in that 3.0 that they have to graduate with that, then I can bring a need, right? So that's Hail Mary number one. Then the same thing for persistence or graduation with regular. If I'm not showing a need, then maybe I do it by low income. Okay. And then in your case here, maybe a third option. Well, let me see if I can bring the persistence rate down to show need. If I say it's also not only just going on to the next grade level, but going on to the next grade level, having performed at a certain level on a certain test. Those are all options because we couldn't make it work the standard way, right? It's not working anymore. In the past, we could show the need. Now we're not being able to show the need. So the majority of us out there for talent search will have to use one of those methods. Whatever you use for persistence, if you decide to use low income persistence rates of students only, then when you get to the 12th grade graduation, it would be helpful if you kept that same, well, let's talk about low income seniors that graduated at the end of their senior year, instead of switching it around, if you could. If you're going to do what I call that Hail Mary option to try to make it work, then use that same option throughout all the other tables, if at all possible, if you need to. Okay, but that's something I didn't think about. Thanks for that idea of possibly basing persistence on that. Put it in the bottom of your table where you put definition, persistence having scored advanced or proficient on the STAR test at their grade level. Okay, I'm feeling it. I know if I read, I would be like, she couldn't find need a regular way. But I also know that, well, I don't see persistence defined anywhere in the regulations that it has to be a certain definition. So I'm providing my definition. I'm sticking to students that came back and were promoted to the next grade level, but I added something to it, okay, with a certain GPA or having, um, you know, um, achieved a certain test score on a certain test to say that that's, true persistence. Okay, let's see here. And I think that takes us. I think we have another question, or this is the one I'm looking at. Let me go ahead and answer live and hit that. Yep, that's done. Thank you all so much for joining us. Just keep an eye on that budget. Prepare, just had to have that conversation there. Hopefully they can get this out fast, get it, you know, read and turned in fast and turn around and get you your money before sooner than usual. That would be awesome, right? We're just not used to it. So, just keeping that out there. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Again, not trying to freak you out, just keeping it real, and having that conversation. And hopefully we can come back and say, I remember that. When were we worried about running out of money? It got taken care of. Not a problem. Thank you all so much. You all have a great, great week. Check out our folders, the Google Drive, for resources. We're trying to update them as much as we can. If you see something that's outdated or looks like there may be an error on it, just let us know. Okay. Thank you all so much. Y'all have a great week.